name is Pam Arnold. I have a small farm in Scandia located on the National Wild and Scenic St. Croix River called Salt and Pepper Farm. I've been here since about 1990, but living here since 95. And recently in the last 10-12 years have begun to actively manage the property from a stewardship perspective as well as from an ag perspective. And it started really with an unplanned event that brought me into the world of my watershed district, the conservation district, the National Resource and Conservation Service, the Minnesota DNR forestry program, just a litany of amazing resources that became available to me because of one event, which was a situation where my commercial honeybees were killed from an unknown cause. And thanks to the University of Minnesota Bee Lab, we were able to get immediate response from PCA as well as the Minnesota Department of Ag and determined that our bees were killed by clothianidin, which is a component of GMO corn. It's a coating on the GMO corn, which is highly toxic to insects, and happened to be, my bees contacted presumably the clothianidin on a neighboring cornfield and brought that poison back to the hive and literally killed 7/8 of all the hives. So we were able to work with the Minnesota Department of Ag to determine the cause. And at that point, I made a decision to take some ag land that we owned here out of lease. It was being leased by a farmer who was doing very responsible but traditional agriculture, growing GMO corn and GMO soy. And in that relationship, I felt very lucky because he was a very conscientious farmer, but we couldn't really agree on letting us know when and what was being applied to the soil and the plants on that space. The poplars back there define kind of a wet area that used to be cultivated, almost like a lobe of space protected by this really significant geological feature on the property, the ravine system. Because we're on the plateau, a little bit like the driftlet. So this treed area marks a really beautiful and interesting ravine system. Sandhill cranes were nesting over in that corner. There are pheasants out here and in the forest edge. It's just so exciting that I don't ever want to mow this again. I have to mow it. I'm going to burn it, actually. My plan is to mow a fire break and do a burn in November. What's interesting is that we cover crop this side, but we just get down to the nubbins, and rye is an annual, so it kind of knocked the rye down, so we've got all this foxtail and other weeds. But over here, this is rye, and we're using it to weed abate as well as, cover the soil because we don't want any bare soil. This is sort of a picture, a micro picture of what everybody can do.
This is surprising to me because it is like really small.
Yes.
So this is like if you just have your little backyard garden, you can still be using
Absolutely
cover crops like
you can
this,
use
like
it
you're
as you're
saying.
establishing lawn. If you're trying to improve and create a more biodiverse lawn, which includes clovers, legume, and pollinator feeders, plants that grow close to the ground, rye is a great way to start the process. Water quality certification was among the many opportunities that crossed our path here at the farm. And I have to say that given how much what we do is a conversation with our community, how we're farming, why we're farming, what we're farming, water quality certification really, in my opinion, gives me a way to talk about some of the core values that we are activating here with agriculture as well as just stewardship. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity. the sign is a crowd pleaser. People love the sign, and I'm really proud to have it up on our barn, as well as plans to put it at the end of our road, so that people see this place in the context of this program. So I don't know, it's great.